Hello, hello. I'm so excited to have everybody back here. Let's see. So, we're going to talk about yoga and mindfulness and how it can get you through the holidays. So, what should be a relaxing and reflective time with family is often marred by the worry of getting everything done, right? Making sure everyone's having a good time, yourself included. And this year, add in a huge mix of fear and anxiety, maybe not being with everybody. Add all that on top of it, and it's a recipe for a nervous breakdown. So I know that it's already started. Like if you're going into any stores, gosh, I've even felt it in the parking lot because I try to avoid stores. Target Drive Up is my best friend. So if you've noticed any of this, like you may be already feeling not even your own fear and anxiety, but other people's fear and anxiety. And of course, with the pandemic, it's worldwide. So there are things you can do to help you kind of calm down. Without getting into my tips just yet, I would say stop watching the news. Like Saturday morning, I got on my phone. I know better. I don't usually do this. I don't know what I was doing, but I looked at my phone, started reading some news headlines, and then I was irritated and and anxious. And I'm like, okay, just a reminder why I don't do this. I don't do this for a reason. So that's my top thing, just as a side note. But this season doesn't have to be stressful. You can feel festive without the pressure. One of the things, I did on Sunday, we went out to the tree farm to go cut down a tree. Like, it's a way to get outside in nature, let the babies run around, and it was amazing and fun. And honestly, I didn't even come home with a tree. It was just the experience of doing it. And so there are things if you just seek them out. But I'm going to go over a few yoga and mindfulness things and yoga philosophy. We'll talk about just doing yoga as well. But there are ways. So I'm also going to introduce and talk about, we're doing this challenge, this 12 days to balance your body, mind, and heart this season. And I'm going to announce that more in detail later in the Wild Wisdom Collective. But we're kicking off December 10th, and we're going for 12 days. So it'll last till the 22nd. And we'll actually have a gathering for the winter solstice. It will actually not be in the Facebook group because then it's only a one way. I'll send out a Zoom link. But I'll send more information out and a link in the comments. But all of the information I'll be posting on social media, in the Wild Wisdom Facebook group, and in the links below. So let's talk about tips. So practicing mindfulness. So mindfulness is it can be a buzzword, but it's an important practice. And so what I always like to explain first is that yoga is an entire way of living and has its own philosophy system. It is not just the movement practice, which in Sanskrit is called asana. So yoga is more than that, although we'll talk about some movement practices. But mindfulness is a form of meditation that you can do in your daily life or as a formal practice. And it is a part of yoga philosophy as well, because meditation and concentration, mindfulness is concentration, are part of the 8 limbs of yoga. So I always like to share that information. So mindfulness and practicing mindfulness during the season, it's the simple act of being present. So even if it's the last thing you want to do, you don't want to be somewhere. My uncle would always say, family are like fish, they stink after 3 days, and I'm sure some of you can relate to that. So we bring all our stuff. Like if you ever feel there's that saying, if you feel like you're enlightened, go home and be with your family, and you'll learn that you might still have some layers and work to do. But the practice of mindfulness you can do as a formal practice, and I'll link below to a link to a formal practice. But you can do this every day, and I'll share with you how I do it. You're simply observing each moment without judgment, without being overwhelmed or consumed by your thoughts or emotions. Like, they'll come up, you'll observe them, you'll let them kind of go, just like you're watching fish in an aquarium or the sea or the clouds pass by. Pema Chodron talks about, you're the sky and the weather are the thoughts and emotions, but the sky remains constant. So when you notice the mindfulness practices, you will notice your mind is wandering. And it might be, if this is a new practice for you, immediate, and you could catch yourself with the word thinking. I got to bring it back, whatever you're focusing on. Or, you might go for 5-10 minutes and be like, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to be paying attention, and I just totally didn't hear someone's talk to me, or I don't know what's going on. So it's just bringing it back and not beating yourself up, because there's without judgment. Remember that piece. So here's an example of how I practice mindfulness daily. And, some days I'm much better at it than others, but any of these practices, they are just like athletic training. Like if you're trying to build a muscle, you're just going to repeatedly do that to build it up. So if you're doing your meditation or mindfulness muscle, for example, you're just going to continue to practice. Okay. And then some days, you might get less sleep and you may not be as mindful, but you're going to try to practice anyway and not beat yourself up about it. So daily, I feed my daughter. I give her a bottle, or I feed her solid meals. And but especially I notice in the morning and the evening when she's in my arms in the chair and I'm feeding her a bottle, like, she can take it and feed herself, but I practice mindfulness with her, because my mind will go, I've got all these things to do today, or I've got these things tomorrow, or those sort of things, or once I put her to bed I need to go do this. So I have to consciously go, no, I'm going to be with her right now. I'm going to look her in the eyes. I'm going to watch her. I'm going to smile with her, while she's drinking her bottle, while she's eating her meal. Because in essence, she'll notice that, whether I'm present or not. And that will be important. Children watch us. So it's important that they see us do these practices, even if you didn't do them before, and now you're doing them. It does shift some things. So that is my daily practice. And of course, you can do it whatever works for you, whether it's when you're eating, you can apply mindfulness to eating. You can apply, mindfulness to walking. You can apply mindfulness to your daily routines, brushing your teeth, that sort of stuff, anything you choose to. So see what makes sense for you. And I'd love to hear in the comments what you're going to practice being mindful with. Okay, just one thing. It doesn't have to be everything. It can be your breath. I mean, that's the practice that I'll link to. So check out the show notes or comments for a link to a simple mindfulness meditation practice. But just remember, you can apply it to anything. The second thing I want to talk about for this season is letting go of expectations. Okay, so we often have ideas how we want things to be or turn out. You've probably noticed this in relationships, in a job, and with family, or when you're preparing a holiday meal or gathering. So really comes up during the holiday season. And this year, it is about letting go of control. Like, we have to, and go with the flow. There are things that we just simply can't do. And our gatherings are different. And it's interesting how things are shifting, because I know that live Christmas trees, like, they're running a shortage. And I didn't really look deep into this, but it's sort of like, well, we know that people are starting to reevaluate this whole being home and with family and the importance of it this year, because they were locked down together. And so So it's like, so people are actually maybe like, I want a live tree, I want it to smell good, those sort of things. I'm not really 100% sure why, but like, I know that's important to me. I want the smell. I want it to feel like a holiday. So it's interesting to see how things shift this year. But the expectations may still be there, or there might be new expectations. And so letting go of expectations for the holidays, letting go of expectations of how your family should act or how a partner should act, just try to let that go, okay? And just simply let things happen, allow things to flow. Because when you take the expectation out, then you're less likely to be disappointed or angry or reactive, that sort of stuff. Because life is life, and especially around the holidays, not everything's going to turn out perfectly. It doesn't mean you can't enjoy things for the way it is. So just not setting high expectations, you can just roll with everything more easily. So that would be my suggestion. And you can apply this to anything in your life when we're talking specifically about the holidays. The third thing I want to talk about is being compassionate to yourself and others. So compassion is a general thing, but it's also yoga philosophy. And so it's practicing kindness to yourself. Remember, yourself and to your friends and family. You don't have to push yourself too hard during the holiday season, and you'll actually enjoy it more if you don't. I was just talking this morning with my chiropractor, and it's sort of like, my daughter still doesn't know what's going on, even though now she's not in a swaddle for Christmas. We can be a little more interactive, but this is the year that I don't have to go all out. Well, I never have to go all out if I don't want to, honestly, but she's not going to notice. So if I don't have everything decorated, whatever. But that's me. And I'm okay with that. I don't have that expectation on myself. But being compassionate, especially, so important all the time, but especially this year. So many old, deep fears and anxieties and unresolved emotions, other emotions, unprocessed traumas, those sort of things have come up this year. The shadow side has been more illuminated this year because we have less ways to distract ourselves. And so really being compassionate, and that's why I always say with yourself first, but also with others, with your family, with people at the store when it's chaotic. It's so important. And if it's like too much and you find yourself aggravated, find some quiet time with yourself. This is when you go back to your mindfulness practice, you go back to your yoga practices, you go back to meditation practices, because reminding yourself that everyone's doing the best they can, even if it doesn't seem like it. So when it comes to family, because these things come up, try to avoid rehashing past tensions. Instead, savor the good moments. I mean, even if that's like a mindset shift of going, okay, I know I get irritated by that. I'm just going to bite my tongue now. And it's not necessarily a shoving down, okay? It's more of, I'm going to pick my battles. My grandfather would always say that, I pick my battles. Because this is kind of a funny story, but I remember when I got a nose ring, and we were actually at a funeral, and my dad yells, "What the hell is that thing in your nose?" I was shocked, that my grandfather didn't say anything. Of course, he wouldn't yell across the room, but and I asked him later, and he said, "I pick my battles," and I think that's very wise. So being compassionate to yourself, biting your tongue in order to not have to create chaos during this holiday season, and shifting your mindset to reflect on the good things, whether it's holiday season or just some wonderful things that are happening. Like here in Indianapolis, we have beautiful weather today, and here it is December. Just kind of shifting your mindset and finding a seed of compassion, even if it's challenging, because we know sometimes family can be really challenging. And just remember, things are coming up for everyone to deal with right now. So it may be even more challenging. So compassion is really important and key. And of course, do yoga. Breathe. Breathe is, I kind of lumped it in with yoga, but it goes into mindfulness. You can simply practice on breathing. What I would recommend during this time, during the holidays, is restorative yoga. And I will be sharing more restorative yoga practices during this 12 days to balance your body, mind, and heart, because that's so important. And if you're new to yoga and you're not sure what restorative yoga is, then you'll find out. You can hop into the Wild Wisdom Collective Facebook group, and I'll be sharing some of that info. But it's really just relaxing over bolsters or couch cushions, or sometimes you don't even need props, and just letting your body settle in and relax. And it helps the nervous system calm down. And of course, breathing with it and concentrating on your breathing, or without doing restorative yoga, you can simply concentrate on your breathing. It's called pranayama. These are ways to calm your nervous system, and that's the key during this season, especially when it's crazy, and even this year or any time. But especially important right now as anxieties and fears are high, and things aren't like they used to be, sort of thing. So, just wanted to recap, yoga and mindfulness can really help remove tension that builds during this season. So even if you're enjoying this time of year, having fun, all the activities and things to do, like if you're constantly going and doing, this year there's probably not as many holiday parties because we're not gathering like we used to. So that's in some ways nice, but in some ways that might be disappointing. But when you're doing, it can get a little overwhelming and put stress on your body. So don't forget that you have these practices to come back to. Yoga, doing yoga, restorative yoga especially, breathing, practicing mindfulness, being compassionate, and letting go of the expectations of how things should be. So if you can do that during this holiday season, you'll set yourself up to calm your nervous system, and then set yourself up for a better 2021 for next year. Okay? So I wanted to also share that if you want to learn more about getting grounded and feeling balanced, I just finished my new ebook. So it features 5 ways to balance the body, mind, and heart. And I'm calling it my Rooted Woman Starter Kit. So Rooted Woman's coming in January. So this has worksheets, journal questions, links to helpful resources, and links to guided meditations and more. So you can go to alyssapfennig.com/Rooted Woman Starter Kit, or click on the link below to get access. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Check out the links below for all the information, and I hope you have a wonderful holiday season.